All America, all the time. Sit down, buckle up, and get ready for The Dan Bongino Show.
That's like a little secret between Guy and I. Guy loves to do this. I was doing a radio interview. I'm not going to say which radio station when I first took over the, Limbaugh hours after we lost Rush way too soon. I was doing an interview on a radio station that was going to pick us up, and they're getting ready to, intro me. And the lady's like, hey, don't be nervous. And I kind of laughed. I was like, oh, okay, thanks. Like, when have you ever seen me nervous, honey? And I told Guy, he brings that up all the time. He pops out of this door right over here to my right every time hey, don't be nervous. But it's like a little joke between me and Guy. Don't be nervous. Do I look like the nervous type? We have a very special guest for you today on the show, coming up in a little over an hour. Ed Galrine running in Kentucky District 4 against Tom Massie. So I've got a little bit on that today too, because, listen, folks, I want you to run a little test. Okay, to show you like who has an authentic following and who's all bullshit and bots, okay? I'm talking about nationally, okay? Do this little test. Go on your X feed and just watch, post like, I love Tom Massie. And then later on, give it a little time, go post Tom Massie's a fraud or whatever. Watch what happens. You just test that out. And you tell me who's got a bot army and who doesn't, which is weird because they just did another podcast ranker that just came out. Remember PodTrack came out a couple weeks ago and had us at number 9 in the country podcast-wise? I'm just telling you because other people out there, oh my gosh, he doesn't really, no one's listening. Nobody's listening. I'm not really sure you can read data. They were like, well, that PodTrack is all fake. Well, then Triton came out yesterday, top podcast by weekly downloads. You see, for the month of February to March, and we were number 3. So we were, I'm not saying, I'm just saying. Somebody's got an audience globally and somebody doesn't. I'm really sorry that hurt. I know you're crying, you're peeing in your diapers. I get it. You got the bot army. We hate the Jews. I get it. I understand. I know that bothers you. But there's nothing you can do. How does that make you feel, you zeros? There's nothing you can do. You just have to sit back and realize that you're losers. How does that feel? You absolute life losers. That we have a real army of supporters because this show is the real deal. And you've got a bunch of clown bots. Do my little test. You'll see what I mean. But seriously, thank you. Number 3 on Triton. I'm sure the people who hate the show will have some other reason why nobody's listening or whatever. Okay, sure, whatever. All right, I got a lot to get to today, including I'm going to open up the show. The Daily Mail is doubling down. And what I would argue is one of the best Trump sound bites I've seen, and there's a lot of them, in a really long time. And it proves my point that this is asymmetric information warfare. The media people questioning Donald Trump don't know what Donald Trump knows. So when Donald Trump calls him out on it, you got to watch Jeff Mason, this reporter. He doesn't know what to do. He's like, oh, yeah, okay, I guess I got to concede that point. This is a great clip. Got that coming up in a second. I'll get right to it. Hey, this last year, your eyes may have been open to a lot of things, but there was one thing that many found particularly disturbing. That's a lot of this stuff going on in the party. It's infighting. We all agree on a lot of stuff, folks. Freedom of speech, the right to life, the Second Amendment, and we support our military and first responders. Well, there's one company that's been fighting for our rights. They supported this program from the very beginning, and that's Patriot Mobile. Unlike other mobile providers, Patriot Mobile works on all 3 major networks. I use it. In fact, you can be on multiple networks on the same phone. More importantly, their customers enjoy priority service with the same or better quality. I'd argue better quality in a lot of areas as their old providers. Patriot Mobile's 100% US-based customer service team makes switching fast and easy. Keep your number, keep your phone, or upgrade. It's really easy. They saved me on a trip to the northern part of Florida. Southern part of Florida recently. I couldn't get some access. I used Patriot Mobile, no problem at all. Go to patriotmobile.com/Dan and get a free month of service with the offer code Dan, my first name. Patriot Mobile's been fighting for us and the things we believe in for well over a decade. They've been a great sponsor. Let's thank them by making the switch today. Check them out. patriotmobile.com/Dan. That's patriotmobile.com/Dan. All right, fellas, let's go. I want to start with a banger today. If Trump had the greatest hits, this is easily a top 10 for me, and that's a lot. He's been doing this for a long time between his business life and his political life. Here he is yesterday. He's asked a question by Jeff Mason, and I kept it playing a little bit at the end because another reporter chimes in and he wrecks her too. Jeff Mason's like, hey, the Iranians are, threatening us with all this stuff, and it just sounds really terrible. I mean, again, this is the doomers in the media. And Trump's like, threatening us with what? Because he knows exactly what's going on behind the scenes. Watch this clip. It's fantastic. Check this out.
The Iranian government threatened a bunch of U.S. companies today in the region, including Google, Apple.
With what? What did they threaten them with? PP guns? Or
well, that's
they don't have much left to threaten.
My question for you is, are you...
I don't know. I mean, what are they... You made a statement. What did they threaten them with? I don't know. Tell me, how did they threaten them?
Well, all I know is that they threatened them, sir.
What does that mean?
Fair enough.
He said something nasty?
Is the government in touch with these companies? Are you helping to backstop them?
You don't even know what the threat was. What was the threat? I haven't heard it. What was the threat? Did they say they're going to blow them up? They're going to hit them? They're not. You know what they're not going to do? They're not going to hit them with a nuclear weapon.
Yeah. Is this something you're concerned about, sir?
No.
Iran's IRGC issues a warning that they will target 18 U.S. technology companies if the U.S. continues targeted assassinations of Iranian leaders beginning on April 1st. Those companies include NVIDIA, Apple, Microsoft.
Most of those people are dead already.
Most of those people are already dead. Guys, listen. I understand the politics of war are always going to be difficult. I get it. And they should be. Come back to me head on. There you guys something. They should be. It is the most grave, serious decision a commander-in-chief can make. Period. However, there is no question that as a tactical exercise in military might, this has been an unbelievable success that's probably going to serve as a warning to China and Russia. Don't F around, because you don't want to find out like the Iranian mullah theocracy did. The point in playing that piece was, listen, open up the show with a little bit of a laugh, how Trump just constantly owns these guys who want you to paint him as a buffoon. They're these intellectuals, and this Trump is just this New York moron. And he just constantly beats their asses. The point is that there's an asymmetry here. I love freedom of the press. I will defend it to the end, even for the morons in the press. But what the press people don't acknowledge, which is stunning, is they are not aware of what they speak. The Iranians have been threatening us. Trump's like, okay, with what? He doesn't know because he's not read in on the program like Trump. All I'm telling you is I posted yesterday, it was meant to be obviously satirical and funny, but about how 90% of what you read in the media is 50% false, and the other 10% is 99% false. It's just bullshit because they don't know. It's like someone in the press commenting on a flux capacitor they've never seen before and challenging the inventor of the flux capacitor on a machine they don't know how it works. They can do it, and it should be protected. It doesn't mean they actually know anything. Couple more things we have to hit right away in the beginning of the show. Speaking of people, media people who are just absolutely full of shit, yesterday's show did big numbers, and I think it did big numbers because people are really tired of the bullshit, folks. The Daily Mail, of course, put out that piece yesterday about how, that the bullet did not match. That is not what the report said at all. The report was pretty clear that due to the fragmentation of the bullet, it was going to be difficult to identify some of the markings. Now, what did they do yesterday or today? They doubled down again. Ballistics experts reveal real reason bullet used to kill Charlie Kirk did not conclusively match rifle allegedly used by suspect Tyler Robinson. You see what they're doing here? Again, this is an ongoing criminal case. Mr. Robinson is entitled to a presumption of innocence and a trial by his peers. And if he is convicted, it has to be beyond a reasonable doubt. That's it. However, the Daily Mail is full of shit. The Daily Mail either can't read or is now trying to backtrack on the ridiculous headline yesterday where they were widely mocked. Folks, people are tired of this. That's why they're coming to shows like this. They're coming to shows like this because they want the truth. And we gave you the truth. This man is entitled to due process like everyone else. But so is the state of Utah that is prosecuting this case. They are entitled to a jury free of tampering. And this is getting ridiculous. That is not what the story said yesterday. And I'm noticing severe backlash now, thankfully, online from people who are getting tired of this. People are getting tired of the fraudsters too. And folks, it's a difficult conversation for me because I really believed in this guy. I did. I supported him for a while, even when, him and President Trump butted heads. Been good on some issues. But I'm going to tell you something. I have never been as disappointed in a human being in politics as I am in Tom Massie. I largely stayed out of that race and make too many comments on it because the people of Kentucky will choose who they want. If they want Tom Massie, I'm not a resident of that district. I live in Florida. You pick who you want. Got his opponent coming on in just a little bit, about an hour. We'll ask some questions about some issues that matter to you, constitutional carry, Iran, NATO. However, when I got up there in that position, I could not believe what a fraud this guy was. I mean, like an epic level fraud. Whatever you think of this guy, I'm telling you, I have no dog in the fight. I supported him. He is an absolute fraud. Fraud. He decided to do some money bomb thing and just completely BSing people about my record there, just lying to your face. I tried multiple times to get this guy to come over to give him a briefing on a case he kept bloviating about on Twitter, causing a serious problem, by the way. And I thought he believed in due process. He's supposedly a libertarian, wants to try a case on X. And he didn't do it. I was there from March until January of this year. You know how many times he came over to visit and ask about these cases despite multiple offers, cases he kept bloviating about? Well, we could have actually told him. 0. And there's nothing he's going to tell you. All of his BS responses, his fake community notes, it's all a distraction from the fact that he doesn't want to admit that he was offered a detailed briefing within certain parameters on these matters he's bloviating about on X in order to attack President Trump and others and due process. Could have cleared it up for him right away, and he just didn't want to do it because he preferred to be stupid. Nothing will change that. He'll try to distract you with his razzle-dazzle, his bot army, like we haven't been through this before. You think you're the first time we've entered into a primary and supported a candidate and had other people come in with the bots and the bullshit? What do you think? We're like newbies at this? I promise I'll far outlast you. I promise. I've heard it all before. The guy is a fraud. Anyone telling you otherwise, including him, is lying. He did not want to know. He preferred to be dumb so he could plead ignorance on X and attack President Trump and his agenda. You believe in due process or not? Whether it's the Daily Mail piece on Tyler Robinson or the pipe bomb case, which I've not commented on, because I actually believe in due process. His subjects in these cases are entitled to a free and fair trial by a jury of their peers. Some people believe that, some people don't. Folks, Kentucky, you pick who you want. I'm just telling you, that dude's a fraud. I've never seen anything like it in my life. And I get it, you little botsters come in. I've seen it. I've seen it all before. You're wasting your time. I can do this all day, and I will. And there's nothing you can do about it, like 0, less than 0, like the Robert Downey Jr. movie. We got a lot of things to talk about. President Trump's at the Supreme Court now, or over there. They're talking about birthright citizenship. I'm going to get to that later. But a lot of big news happened yesterday. I don't want to miss either. There is just a huge body of material. This is probably one of the biggest news days of the year. Birthright citizenship. We had a case break yesterday, 8-1 at the Supreme Court on conversion therapy. A lot of stuff to talk about, so let's get right to it. First, regarding the Strait yesterday, President Trump is going to brief the nation tonight. He's going to brief at, I believe, 9 p.m. Eastern time tonight, whether it's from the Oval or not, I don't know, be from the White House. He's going to talk about the status of the war. I only bring this up and put up that Wall Street Journal article because one of the constant criticisms you see with President Trump and the war effort is that this is a forever war. It is not, in fact, forever. It's been barely a month. Now, President Trump, as you see in this Wall Street Journal piece, which is really no friend to him, by the way, President Trump tells aides he's willing to end the war without reopening Hormuz. Now, unbelievably, the same people, here's the hypocrisy here. The same exact people who are complaining about President Trump dragging us into a forever war are now complaining because President Trump is considering not engaging in a forever war. Justin, am I wrong? I know I'm not wrong. They're the same people. I can't believe this guy's dragging us into this forever war. Now they're like, I can't believe he's pulling us out of what I thought was a forever war. Which one is it, guys? I'm just asking. Because any criticism I would have of the effort is going to be based on a principle. I don't want a forever war either without a strong exit plan. Remember, one of Fox Connor's rules of war, never go to war for long. Meet your objectives and get out. The Strait is of far more interest to European allies and China, not an ally, because that's where a good chunk of their oil has to bypass, the Straits of Hormuz. If they're not interested in opening it up, it affects them far worse than it affects us. I thought you were our allies. I asked Ed about this later, our NATO, because President Trump brought up again, like, what is the purpose of a NATO alliance if the alliance only works when you need us? What about when we need you? That sounds like an asymmetric alliance to me. You're not meeting your military requirements. He's going to address this tonight, but please get your story straight on the attacks on the president. We have troops in a combat zone, in a limited engagement. He's already set a timeline. Forever war is just a bullshit criticism. Now you're bitching about the other thing. By the way, these are your opponents on this. If you're one of the doomers in here who's already declared the war over a month in, you have no idea what the strategic long-term ramifications of this could be. None at all. We're not even in the midterm yet. Midterm of the war, not the election. Here are some of the people on the other side of this argument you're lying with. You see this guy? He goes to a rally and asks about not the Straits of Hormuz, but the gays of Hormuz. Watch the answer. Check this
Isn't it a little bit homophobic that we're so focused on the Straits of Hormuz and not the gays of Hormuz?
Yes, I agree. Yes, for sure. Yeah.
Why do you think they're willing to leave the gays of Hormuz behind?
I think it's just historically, gays have always been very discriminated against, which is wrong on so many levels.
Even in war.
Yeah, even in war. And it just takes, I think, more, more reform in government, obviously, and then also educating society.
I just feel like if we're going to go in there, we can't leave the gay people behind.
Right,
I don't think we should go in there at all, but if we're going to, the gays of Hormuz, we could turn it into Fire Island.
For sure.
No, that's no cap on God FR on YouTube. This is the people you're aligning with. Guy's favorite video of the day. I happen to agree. This may be one of the first times we agree on video of the day. These are some of the imbeciles on the other side of this space. Folks, I will say it again. Political arguments to be made for the war in Iran are valid on both sides. Valid in that we need to discuss this stuff publicly. When we are talking about U.S. troops in a war zone, potentially coming back in body bags, this is the most grave decision we have to make. But the criticisms of it should be valid. This is a forever war. We're 4 weeks in. I cannot believe how many people pretending to be on our side on X are already ready to declare the war law. It's over. It's over, man. You're like 1 round into a 12-round boxing match. You're like 10 seconds into a UFC 5-round championship fight with 5-minute rounds. Folks, if this blows up in our face long term, and God forbid, knock on wood, it doesn't, something awful happens, you have my word. You have my absolute word. we will discuss it openly and honestly. I'm interested in cheerleading for anything that turns out to be a bad policy. Again, I ran for office. I ran against what I thought was a really bad idea and a prolonged presence in Iraq. Here's another one. Sorry to start you out with all this absurdity and ridiculosity today. However, here's Sonny Hostin from The View. Donald Trump is building a White House ballroom. And because the left, of course, wants the government to pay for it because he's raising private funds. I don't know. I don't understand. Like this guy's raising private funds to enhance the White House and make it more secure. Folks, without disclosing any classified information at all, I worked there for close to 5 years, okay? The place needs an upgrade. There's only so many security enhancements you can do on an old building that was not built for this, for drones, EMPs, and modern threats, okay? That President Trump is willing to fund this by raising private donations. The left is furious. They just don't want, here's the real fight. They don't want Donald Trump to leave his mark on history by constructing a wing of the White House, and people will remember him for that. They don't want it. They don't want it. They cannot have this guy's legacy outlast this presidency. That is the only reason they're fighting this. Mark it, flag it in the chat. It has nothing to do with anything else. Here's Sonny Hostin on The View. This is how stupid his opponents are. Again, sorry to bombard you with stupidity, but it's important to contrast and highlight the other side. Suggesting that the bunker being built underneath, that this came out publicly just in the last few days, is, flags in the chat, is going to be like a hideaway for like celebrities and stuff. Yeah, that's totally. But apparently they have no idea how the system actually works. I do. Check this out.
What is shocking to me is the fact that underneath this bunker, underneath the ballroom is a military bunker.
Yes, that's what I'm talking about.
And that part is really disconcerting because Trump says stuff like, I can't believe that people know about the bunker now because of a stupid lawsuit. Why is there a bunker? And are all the billionaires now, if something bad happens, is the plan that all of them are going under the bunker?
It's like paradise.
It is just like paradise.
Folks, the Democrats are totally crashing out, okay, right now. They are desperate for us to lose this war in Iran because they know if a more stable country results and we can get control of basically the largest terror proxy in the region, or at least mow the lawn, that he is going to have an enormous military victory along with Venezuela, where we arrested Maduro. They can't have it happen. So they're totally crashing out now on everything. They are in a full court press, like they're bulging all their people in this one spot to hit him on the most ridiculous of things. Why do we need a bunker underneath the White House? Gee, I don't know. He's only the most threatened man on earth. What are you, an imbecile? Yes, Donald Trump's building it for Bill Gates. It's going to be like a summer home for all the celebrities in the event of nuclear annihilation. That makes sense to you? The audience, like a bunch of barking seals, like, yeah, man, good job, Sonny. I used to sit with her in green rooms on CNN, and I got to tell you, she was never this crazy. This is all like rage bait, clickbait nonsense. The same thing Massie does. The guy like wants to live on. What is he doing for you in Kentucky? Except rage baiting. I got a bunch of bots to ratio you. Good job, buddy. Well done. Yeah, well done. That's excellent. Clown. We got other things going on. How about like actually support some of the president's more conservative efforts than grandstanding all the time? Folks, one of the things I learned in politics early too is that our political opponents will only change their behavior when this stuff results in a personal cost to them. Michael Anton's written about this over and over again. It has to, in a personal cost, prestige, money, business opportunities. They will not change their behavior. Summed up neatly, communists will not stop being communists until communists kicks them square in the balls. That's it. There is no other circumstance by which it'll change. I saw it in New York City when I grew up. New York City, when I grew up in the 80s, was a raging crime cesspool. Folks, you could not even park your car on the street without remember the club? And then they had the cap on the club. It was a steering wheel immobilization device because everyone's car got stolen. Everyone. You couldn't swing a dead cat without hitting someone who didn't get their car stolen in New York. Everybody would get beat up at bus stops and bad areas and mugged all the time. We got mugged so much in New York, like people would just steal your stuff that no one even reported to the police. I told you about that story coming back from school on the bus. This like gang of zeros came up and I had a tropical fantasy drink. You know, it was that drink? It was like cheap soda is all we could afford. And they would steal it, take your money. No one, I don't even think I told my mother. That was just New York. But why did New York change and vote for Rudy Giuliani? Because so many freaking people saw what was happening when people were being killed in their own neighborhoods, in Democrat areas. They were like, man, this is enough. I don't want to lose my kid too. Now, that's a dramatic example. But I want to show you why the left-wing media that we know hates us, hates Donald Trump, hates liberty and freedom, is all of a sudden now asking tough questions about the TSA lines at the airports and the DHS shutdown. They're only asking tough questions because of this Anton rule. It's starting to cost them personally as they sit in the same lines too. I'm going to take a quick break. I'm going to show you what I mean. This is not principled. This is not Margaret Brennan and other left-wing hacks all of a sudden, you know, in a road to Damascus conversion moment. There's none of that. This is simply about they're getting pissed off because they got to wait in lines too. That is it. Folks, so Jasmine and I were talking about how our cars are basically a second office for the both of us. We drive around a lot. Between driving to work, driving to meetings, running the kids to school and games, we put some serious miles on both of our cars. And the more you rely on your car, the more you start thinking, okay, well, what happens when something goes wrong? These repairs can be really expensive. A lot of these complicated computers, not like the old days, you slap on a new hubcap for $25. Those days are over. So I told Jasmine to join me and sign up for CarShield. The peace of mind it gives you when you depend on your car as much as we do is invaluable. CarShield. CarShield gives you 24/7 roadside assistance, courtesy towing, and rental car options at no extra cost. They work with ASE certified mechanics nationwide. Their plans are month to month. The deductibles are low, which is huge when you're already financially stressed. They've been doing this for 20 plus years. It's a long time. They protect over 2 million vehicles and boast a 96% customer review rating. It's pretty good. Make a decision your wallet will love. Protect yourself with CarShield. Right now, CarShield is offering our audience 20% off with the code Bongino, Bongino, at carshield.com. Carshield.com, promo code Bongino. Visit carshield.com to lock in your 2026 protection today and protect yourself from expensive car repairs. Protect yourself, carshield.com, and use code Bongino for 20% off. Thanks, CarShield. We appreciate it. Check them out. This is what I'm talking about. Don't ever forget this axiomatic rule of politics. Never. If you run, if you support a candidate, if you knock on doors, you make donations, whatever you do, you support a cause, a candidate, a person, a party, whatever it is, don't ever forget this rule. People will not change their political behavior and who they vote for, even the most diehard communists, until something personally impacts them. Business opportunities, prestige, money is lost. They won't. I know it's hard to believe. Like we can reason our way out of it. We can't. That is why Democrat policies are so destructive, because eventually, if you implement them in mass, just like Mamdani's seeing now, they start to kick people in the balls in mass. It may take a while, but they get there. Here's Margaret Brennan asking hard questions about this liberal BS over TSA lines, which they caused. Check this out.
Practically speaking, ICE is already funded. In fact, it's one of the few DHS entities where people are getting paid because they had so much funding from the president's last bill. And now their portfolio is expanding because they're in American airports across the country. So what did Democrats get out of this standoff?
Yeah, well, Margaret, the standoff is not done yet, right? The president is illegally paying, apparently, TSA agents.
Of course, that's Rep. Hines, Democrat zero. Just glossing over the fact that ICE is already paid to 2029. The left is trying to tell you that they're stopping DHS funding and making you wait in line at the airport because TSA is a component of that, because they're stopping ICE funding from these dreaded ICE people actually enforcing the law against illegal aliens. It's bullshit. And Margaret Brennan's only saying that. Remember J.D. Vance and Margaret Brennan? Margaret Brennan's only saying that because this is starting to kick them in the nads. These media people travel a lot. A lot of them don't even live near the studios. That's the only reason. This may seem like a simple point, but I wanted to give you some hope. We used to have that shirt, is it bad enough yet? I love that shirt. We should bring that one back. Is it bad enough yet? I wear it sometimes to work out. It was before Trump got elected. It was meant to make a point that when you hit maximum political depression at the bottom of that valley, when you think everything is terrible, is ironically when it's the most likely to turn around. Folks, I lived it. I promise you. I saw it in New York and I saw it in Maryland. Things got so bad in New York with 2,000 plus homicides a year in the 5 boroughs. 2,000 plus homicides in one city alone. People's cars getting stolen, their kids getting kidnapped and assaulted and mugged. That when it got so bad, that's when the turnaround. I saw a turnaround happen. I saw it in Maryland too. Maryland, another deep blue state. They started taxing the rain. The freaking rain. Go look it up. Maryland rain tax. You think I'm making this up? If you had it was based on impervious surfaces. Bottom line, if you had a business with a flat roof, you got this enormous tax bill. All of a sudden, these Democrat lawmakers were like, man, this is a great idea, this rain tax. Democrats who actually lived in Maryland were like, well, that's kind of bullshit. I ain't paying a tax on the rain. And what happened? They got a 2-term Republican governor. It had been the best Republican ever. He's better than the Democrats. Folks, just when you think this stuff is hitting the bottom of the valley, don't give up. Don't give up. I promise you, people in the end understand that they're getting kicked in the nads by bad policy. Sometimes it just takes a while. I mean, think about this. What does it take? I'm a contributor over at Fox, had a show there, been on and off there for the last 10 years. I love being there. The people there are great. One of the nicest people at Fox, everyone will tell you this. You put a beer in anyone at Fox, I'll tell you the same thing, is Dana Perino. You can't get under Dana Perino's skin. She's always smiling. She's exactly like she is off the air, on the air. She's just the most pleasant person to be around. Do you know what it takes to get Dana Perino pissed off on the 5? Here is Dana and Jessica Tarlov. Dana's like, Jessica, come on. You really trying to blame this TSA, DHS shutdown on Republicans? Like, nobody actually believes that. That's how bad this argument is. That even Dana's like, come on, man. Really? Check this out.
Democrats are playing a very dangerous game. But Jessica thinks that everyone believes that this is the Republicans' fault. Is not
Why didn't
true.
Mike Johnson just bring the bill back to the floor?
There can be politics, but everybody knows. And especially that's actually pretty disingenuous to suggest that it's the Republicans' fault. The Democrats are the ones who wanted this in the first place, Jessica. They wanted to change
Voted
everything.
11
and
times.
they got the changes that they asked for. The Secretary of Homeland Security got fired. They put Tom Homan in. They've like, okay, you know what? We'll do this. We'll take this. We'll put the numbers on the badge. We'll do anything.
Body cameras.
Yes, we'll do that too. We'll do all of these things so that there's an intramural squabble about how you ultimately get it done. We all know the reason that it actually happened, and it's because Chuck Schumer does not want to be primaried.
Okay, this is really important, this segment. I know I say that a lot. Stop what you're doing and listen to this. I'm going to tie all this together now about the Save America Act and the filibuster. What does that have to do with any of this? Folks, I just told you that I have lived through this twice I've only been alive 51 years, okay? I'm not that old. Old enough, but not that old. I have lived through this twice. This meaning political revolutions from blue states that elect Republicans. I've lived through it twice. Giuliani and Governor George Pataki, Republicans in New York, Larry Hogan in Maryland. I have seen it twice where Democrats eventually get so tired of Democrat policies because their wallets shrink, their kids get mugged, that they throw their own Democrats out and vote for Republicans. I have seen this twice. How does that tie into the Save America Act and the filibuster? Folks, the arguments against scrapping the filibuster now are, listen, the Senate's the cooling chamber. The Democrats are better at big government. I understand all those arguments. However, the Save America Act, which would implement voter integrity nationwide, will only pass if we either scrap the filibuster or if we implement a talking filibuster where they actually have to talk through it and can't just cast a vote. The Democrats have already hoisted upon our back the anchor of big government, folks. the Republican establishment that is against scrapping the filibuster is making this argument like, well, Democrats are better at big government, as if we've been in any way successful at stopping them. Outside of the BCA and the Tea Party revolution, the Budget Control Act, the sequester, the Obama years, we've had almost no successes at all. We've had a lot of tax successes, the Reagan tax cuts, even Clinton cut some taxes. But we have had almost zero success outside of President Trump and DOGE and the shrinking of the federal workforce. Pre-Trump, we've had almost zero success fighting them. My point is this. If there is going to be a revolt against Democrat politics eventually, because it always kicks people in the balls, because Democrat politics have a 100% success rate of failing every time. They won't work because they can't work. Stealing people's money, running their health care, telling people to go to shitty schools. People hate this stuff. Why not just expedite the process? Why not just expedite the process? Hear me out. At least we can paint a contrast between the two parties. We can't do that now. What happens now? We have the White House, we have the House of Representatives, and we have majorities in the Senate. That's what a lot of people in the public hear. Why aren't you Republicans doing anything? Because majorities don't win in the Senate. You need to get over the 60 vote threshold. Not just, it's 100 members. Majority's 51 or 50 plus the vice president. Why not dump the filibuster, let the majority rule, and when the Democrats win, they're going to scrap it anyway. Let them do their thing. Let them show America how bad it sucks. And then we can come in, and at least now lawmakers' votes will count, where we can actually enact like a 12-point or 20-point plan and actually do it. Folks, I promised I'm not some extremist on this. The Democrats are going to scrap this thing anyway. They've already told us that. And when they do it, you'll remember this conversation. We might as well get as much done beforehand so that they can see the result of successful Republican politics when we have a majority and we don't need the filibuster, and then see the Democrats dismantle it all so they can see what A versus B looks like in a simple statistical analysis, A-B analysis. This is why I support Mike Lee on this from Utah, senator from Utah. Here he is laying out on Fox News with the Save America Act, which would save our elections and America by implementing basic voter ID rules. Basic voter ID rules. He says we have a few pass on this with regards to the filibuster. Check this out.
We have exactly two options. We can either, one, start enforcing our rules as they're written and require filibustering senators to speak and exhaust them and stay on a bill that is critical to our agenda until it passes. Or if we're not willing to do that, because that involves hard work, we have to nuke the filibuster. Now, I would strongly prefer the first. I think it's better to do it with the rules that we've got, because the rules that we've got actually ensure and protect robust debate. But what we can't have is this hybrid. We can't try to walk a middle ground between those two, saying, yeah, we're going to stick with the filibuster, with the 60 vote cloture standard, and then not do the work to get to cloture. That is a problem. So we've got a choice to make. If we don't make one of those two choices, use the talking filibuster or nuke the filibuster, we're going to be in big trouble in November.
Listen, can I tell you something on a personal note? I've known Senator Lee for a very long time. There's no one up on the Hill I have more respect for. There was a hit piece out on him about a week ago, something suggesting like this is some grandstanding thing. That's some serious bullshit. This guy has never, ever been a grandstander, ever, ever. He is a principled constitutional conservative, which I align with, and the issues he takes a stand on strongly. And what he said there is valid. The talking filibuster, there's no rule change needed. You want to clog up this legislation in the Senate to save America from voter fraud? Then go defend it on the floor and talk about it. Guys, we need to create this contrast. The problem is there's way too much gray on the margins now. A Democrat gets in, you got a Democrat House and a Democrat majority in the Senate, but not enough to overcome the filibuster. The media blames Republicans. They go, look, Republicans are blocking things in the Senate. And then we lose the other way. Republican in the White House, Republican Senate, Republican House, but not enough to overcome the filibuster. Then the media says, well, the Republicans are in charge. They're not doing anything. They make the exact opposite argument. What victories have we had? Outside of Trump's first year, outside of that, tell me what victories the GOP, the party in general, tell me what victories we've had. We lost health care. We're still stuck with Obamacare, sunk by McCain of all people. Government spending is still out of control. Thank God the federal workforce is shrinking. But again, forget the Trump first term, his first year. What victories have we had? Explain to me, using reason and logic, how the filibuster, not stop specific legislation, has stopped the United States from this bankruptcy trajectory, from individual control of health care, from a bankruptcy of Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid. I just make the case. Folks, I'm at the point now where if large swaths of America want to vote for this big government garbage and want to see how it affects their lives, and there's nothing we're going to do to stop it, let them feel it. Let them see their wallets shrink. Maybe we'll see what we saw in New York City with Rudy Giuliani and a Republican governor, where people just got tired of it. And New York underwent a renaissance. Yeah, it backtracked, but we bought time. That's what a lot of this is about. Folks, you got guys like Bernie Sanders out there now, like a devout communist, talking about a wealth tax. I brought this up yesterday. A wealth tax? Do you understand what a wealth tax is? Listen to how he talks about this, or everybody talks about it here in this tweet, Bernie Sanders. This is like economic ignorance on testosterone. He goes, let me clear things up for you, in his Bernie Sanders voice. Let me clear things up for you. If my 5% wealth tax on billionaires was enacted, you'd owe $135 million more in taxes, and a family of four making $150,000 or less would receive a $12,000 payment. Oh, and you'd still be worth more than $2.5 billion. Seems pretty fair to me. Split screen that. Can you put that up on a split screen for me? Now, if you read that and you're economically illiterate, you say to yourself, well, that sounds fair. Who's your responder? Jamie Dimon, right? We'll take a lot of this billionaire's money. He's no worse for the wear. And a family of four would get a $12,000 payment from Jamie's wallet. And you think to yourself, come on, tell me, even conservatives, as you're reading this, you go, oh, that doesn't sound so bad. What are you laughing at? Oh, you like that? I mean, me direct. Split screen that, VO, switch cameras, go to cameras. I know. I let these guys do their work. Yeah, thank you. When you start asking even basic questions about Bernie Sanders, is what he puts forth here. Like, how is Jamie going to get the $135 million? The whole thing falls apart. You guys see where I'm going with this? Jamie likely doesn't have his money in a passbook bank account at the Ridgewood Savings Bank. That's where I grew up, in Glendale, Ridgewood. They had the Ridgewood Savings Bank. My brother had a passbook. You go in, you put $25. There, I stamp at $25. How is Jamie going to get the money? Anyone in the chat? Let's take his $135 million. He's going to have to sell stock because they don't keep this stuff in a freaking bank account. Bernie Sanders, you moron. Well, if you instituted a wealth tax, guys, across the entire country, and everybody had to liquidate their stock in order to pay someone not to work and give them a, quote, $12,000 payment, do you guys have any idea what would happen to the stock market if everybody liquidated at the same time? They'll go down like a lot. Like the late 1920s, but worse. But you're like, well, that's my 401k and my retirement fund. My annuity's invested in an ETF. You're telling me the whole thing would crash and the $12,000 payment I got from raiding Jamie's wallet actually I'd probably lose twice as much on my stock holdings in my retirement? That's exactly what I'm telling you. How much is, that's if you even, how much is your salary? That's even if you keep your job. As these companies, the public companies start to collapse and start to fire people to preserve market cap. That's assuming, by the way, they don't leave the country. That's assuming they don't, if you do it in the States, leave the States. That's assuming they don't liquidate their assets before it passes and put it in some trust fund. These are the morons you're dealing with. The gays of Hormuz, a wealth tax. How are you going to get the money? Oh, we're just going to liquidate the stock market. I'm going to liquidate the stock market for a $12,000 check as a middle-class American, and I'm going to lose like $30,000 out of my retirement. How does that work for me? Do you see how stupid these people are? Folks, but did I mention, by the way, the tweet about the midterms, the polls, and it says don't give up on the midterms? Did I mention that when we did the rundown? I may have skipped that one. Don't give up on the midterms. There was a tweet I saw yesterday. I sent it, but I forgot to bring it up at the guys' pre-show. Don't give up on the midterms. Listen, it's going to be tough, okay? I'm not going to gaslight you on this. It's going to be tough. The media pressure, Trump's had to make some really hard decisions in Iran and elsewhere that understandably a lot of people have sincere political disagreements with. I get it. The midterms are going to be tough and a challenge. But these people, Bernie Sanders and the gays of Hormuz lady and others, are so ridiculous that even Democrats fear other Democrats. Sane Democrats. There was a poll that popped. I saw it on Twitter yesterday that even though the GOP may not be the most popular party right now, that Democrats are afraid of other Democrats too. Do not be a doomer on this front. Don't give up. Let's not be ridiculous. You know, red wave stuff and all that crap. We got to get out and do the hard work. If the Democrats had anything to run on, folks, they would have already done it. Trump, by the way, is racking up wins, not just on the EO front from our military, but he's also racking up some wins at the Supreme Court. I'm going to get to in a second what's going on right now. The case on birthright citizenship comes down to one thing. Don't let the left fool you. However, there was another big win at the Supreme Court yesterday on conversion therapy, an unquestioned attack on the First Amendment rights of people who want to render mental health care to people who may be struggling with gender issues also. There's zero question about it. So much so, it was an 8-1 ruling in the Supreme Court. Listen to Kerry Urban, who's excellent, talk about this on Fox. This is a really, really big victory. Check this out.
Justice Jackson's dissent. And she said, to do anything else opens up a dangerous can of worms. It threatens to impair states' ability to regulate the provision of medical care in any respect. It extends the Constitution into uncharted territory in an utterly irrational fashion, and it ultimately risks grave harm to Americans' health and well-being. And she read that from the bench, and I think that's sort of signals that she was really, really intent on what she was trying to say.
Yeah, she feels very strongly about it. That's what justices do when they feel strongly and passionately about something. They read their dissent from the bench. But, you know, again, this was an 8-1 decision. So not only is she out of step with the rest of her colleagues, I would argue she's out of step with the country and really the world at this point.
8-1. And who's the only zero who disagrees? Ketanji Brown Jackson, who, by the way, doesn't even know what a woman is. She has said in her confirmation hearing, she doesn't know what a woman is. So how can she object to conversion therapy? People trying to convert from men to women and mental health professionals trying to discuss these gender issues if she doesn't even know what a woman is. Has anyone asked her this question, guys? Anyone? She doesn't know what a woman is. There's nothing to convert to. She doesn't know. 8-1. Put up that tweet on this, SCOTUS Wire. This was another huge win. The doom and gloom class is just, every single day. The war is lost. The economy's collapsing. We just had retail sales, by the way, come back. Pretty great numbers. Everything is doom and gloom all the time. Here's the good news. I like to break up the show a little bit. I think that turning point is coming. I do. I really do. I think the cultural, forget about the politics for a minute and the Giuliani, Maryland argument I made. I think the cultural turning point on a lot of this identity politics, DEI, BS you see, this detachment from faith, this idea the left is jammed down our throat, that you should have faith in government institutions, forget your church and your community. I think that's changing. Okay, bring some receipts. Okay, I will. Washington Examiner piece. Folks, a lot of this, a significant number of our younger generation kids are tired of the emptiness of social media and the bullshit. Listen, I'm not trying to be freaking Plato here or wax poetic. It's empty. Selena Zito, great article in the Washington Examiner. Faith among young people surges, providing a missing anchor. Folks, I'm not your preacher, but can you imagine how empty your life is if you believe this rock we call Earth is it, and your life is social media and Instagram reels all day? How many likes you got? Who you ratioed with your bot army? Can you imagine how devoid of a soul you have to be that that's your entire life? How about time with your kids? Time in church? We were in church this weekend. It was great. We had a blast. You heard I left early? Yeah, I had to. Yeah, I saw Justin. No, I just want to know Justin walked in late. You're going to call me out. You walked in late. Don't say you didn't. He walked in late. I'm just saying, folks. He's 5 minutes late. I saw him right there. And by the way, Justin's like 7 feet tall. Everybody. Yeah, yes. Andrew's like, did he make a scene? Here's the thing about Justin, too, because what are you, 6'4"? He's really tall. 6'3"? Well, he's tall, like really tall. He doesn't even wait for people to stand up. They're all sitting down. And he walks in late. So, like,
all right, that's fake news.
That is not fake news. Even Father Marty noticed. I saw him. Look at you. You got called out. It happened. All right, put up that tweet with the sadness. Let's get back to this. I want to make the point here, too, that this big government model will always fail. Create a contrast, dump the filibuster, let the American people see the contrast between big government, liberal Bernie Sanders bullshit and small, limited government, Tea Party, constitutional conservative, and I promise you they'll make the right choice. DeSantis put this tweet up about bureaucracies run amok. I've tried to make this point over and over again, and in this tweet thread, you'll see it from Governor DeSantis down here in Florida. Do any of you find it odd at all, to the liberals in the audience listening, do any of you find it odd at all that the two spaces liberals constantly complain about, costs getting out of control, are both spaces largely controlled by the U.S. government? Does that bother you at all? Healthcare and education. The government has a massive footprint, correct? They don't have a massive footprint in TV monitors like we have up here. Maybe some regulation, but it's not a huge footprint. Healthcare, between Medicare, Medicaid, public schools, state school funding, the government has an enormous footprint. So why is it, if you look at this chart, that those are the two areas that costs are out of control? It's precisely because the government's the third-party payer. They're not the student. They're not the school. The government winds up paying. So the student doesn't care about the price, and the school doesn't care about charging you more either because they know you're not paying. Put up that chart. When I was running for office in Maryland, I'll never forget, I met with this guy. I forget his name. It was a public meeting, but it was in Prince George's County, which is it's a really very significant, wealthy black county in Maryland. And I went down there, and I was really interested in knocking on doors to see how black voters in Maryland felt about Republican candidates, see if we had a shot. We obviously didn't perform traditionally well there in Maryland. But I meet with this guy, and he pointed out what's in this chart is absolutely true. He said, Dan, the reason liberals will never give up funding public schools is not because it has anything to do with education. He said to me, I'll never forget it. He said, Dan, it's a jobs program. Public schools are a jobs program. Look at this. The growth in bureaucracy and administrative staff far exceeding money dedicated to students and education. It's a jobs program. So is the healthcare space for the government. I'm glad the Governor DeSantis pointed this out. This is a huge scam. The liberal argument that government's the most efficient way to do business falls apart on its face when you point out that the biggest business they're in, healthcare and education, you freaking liberals are complaining all the time about it, how costs are out of control. As you finance an explosion in a government jobs program disguised as education and healthcare. It's a scam, and you know it. It's always been a scam. Ask your liberal friends that. If government is so good at controlling costs and quality, how come where the government has the biggest footprint, healthcare and education, You're constantly bitching about cost and quality. I'm just asking questions. That's what we're doing now. We're told to ask questions, right, guys? We're just asking questions, correct? All right, I got to get this. I got Ed Galrine coming up in just a little bit. Kentucky District 4 candidate in the Republican primary. The Birthright citizenship case is being heard before the Supreme Court right now. Ladies and gentlemen, this is an enormous case. The goal of this show from the beginning has always been to give you digestible nuggets. You all work for a living. You don't have time to be reading 30-page white papers and legal briefs. You're busy taking care of your kids and building this country. And thank you for doing it. The purpose of this show is to sum up issues quickly so you know the takeaway. The Birthright citizenship debate, and it is a debate. Don't listen to the liberals who tell you this was settled in the courts. It was not. That is bullshit. If it was settled in the courts, why is it in the Supreme Court right now? We have a very serious problem with this anchor baby problem. You have people entering the country illegally, not here legally, illegally, having children who get U.S. citizenship. It is not only an issue for a magnet that creates an open border problem because it draws people here, because then they're entitled to the full portfolio of citizenship benefits. It is also a national security issue as well. The second part. Because foreign enemies of the United States know this. They can fly people in, have a child here, and all of a sudden, people who are not our friends have a citizen in their family. This is common sense. Liberals want to tell you, oh, this has already been litigated. You're born here, you're automatically a citizen, and well, that is the case now, but this has not fully been litigated. Wall Street Journal has a great piece about this. There is one line that this all comes down to. This is Randy Barnett. Trump is right on birthright citizenship. They note that the clause grants citizenship to persons who meet two conditions: birth in the U.S. and being subject to the jurisdiction of the U.S. The dispute is over the meaning of the latter term. Talking about the 14th Amendment. Subject to the jurisdiction thereof, folks, has never been fully litigated. This is not an overly wonky topic. There are two potential meanings to this in the legal space. Do they mean people born here who are subject to the political jurisdiction of the United States? Or is it simply a matter of territorial jurisdiction? Very simply stated, if you are an illegal invader from another country, here illegally, and have children, all that matters is territorial jurisdiction? In other words, you're born to U.S. soil, no questions asked. That's the leftist argument, territorial jurisdiction. You understand? Trump's argument is that's bullshit. That's not what it means. It meant subject to the political jurisdiction thereof. And those people are not subject to the political jurisdiction of the United States. They are citizens of another country. Donald Trump is right on this issue. And folks, I don't know what's going to happen in the Supreme Court on the case. I'm not the Stygian witches. Give me the eye. I have no idea what's going to happen. Supreme Court is hit or miss. Amy Coney Barrett has been totally unreliable on these things, but there is zero doubt that this has not fully been litigated. A lot of these cases they cite pre-existed a lot of immigration laws that are even in question. How could they be talking about a law that didn't even exist yet? Trump's had another big victory yesterday, too. We'll see what happens with this case. Again, I don't know. This is a toss-up in the Supreme Court. However, there was another big victory yesterday. Did you see the Oval Office briefing with our Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick? Donald Trump put out an EO using existing law to tighten up vote by mail, which we know is a fraud problem. We put that New York Times article up from 2012, probably 100 times, error and fraud at issue as absentee voting rises. The New York Times wrote about the problem of fraud and rejection rates in mail-in voting in 2012. For the liberals having a hard time with math, that's over 10 years ago. The New York Times wrote this piece, double the rejection rate. Mail-in voting has a problem. Donald Trump, using existing law, put out an EO yesterday. Howard Lutnick describes it, how they're going to tighten up the Postal Service system to make sure that people who request these mail-in ballots actually get the mail-in ballots and not 20 other different people having nothing to do with the person who actually registered. Check this out.
States right, run these elections. They will, if they want to use the U.S. mail, the U.S. Postal Service, they're going to get a code, a barcode from the U.S. Postal Service, and they're going to put that on the envelope, and we will have one envelope per vote. None of this time where we have no idea, there's no observers to mail, there's no envelopes, there's no certainty. That's all going to go away, and what the president is doing today is he's going to make sure that mail-in ballots are safe, secure, and accurate, and will have a clear distinction. If you voted by mail, you will have it on the envelope. Obviously not on the ballot, but on the envelope. So we will know 1 million mail-in ballots. There'll be 1 million envelopes, and you'll be able to know exactly, correctly, that citizens voted.
Now, proving to you what frauds Democrats are, the lawsuits are already piling up, of course, because the Democrats don't want strict custody in the mail system of votes. They want to ship out mail-in ballots to everyone in the state of California, whether you requested it or not. They want a ballot harvester to go get it and return it. Whether they fill it out or the person fills it out, the Democrats don't care as long as the box says Democrat. This sounds like a pretty common sense thing, and the Democrats are all over X crashing out again over this. Everything President Trump does is just immediate, like, word vomit that comes out on the left. I'm going to get to Ed Galrine running for Kentucky 4 coming up in just a few minutes. But I always like to leave you with some good news. Hold on, wait, Brandon Gill, we got to play this. I just saw this yesterday, so I know this is probably a little bit old from a few weeks ago, but speaking of candidates, Brandon Gill's running for re-election. He's a congressman. He's fantastic. He's been on the show. They had the NPR, liberal NPR CEO up on Capitol Hill. And folks, when you're up on Capitol Hill, like you better be prepared, okay? I've been up there a couple times. You better be prepared. This lady is totally unprepared when she's asked basic questions. This is NPR, taxpayer-funded NPR, about even basic things. I play this because this guy has the just perfect temperament for a Republican member of Congress when questioning these liberal lunatics and all their nonsense. Check this out.
Do you believe that America is addicted to white supremacy?
I believe that I tweeted that, and as I've said earlier, I believe much of my thinking has evolved over the last half decade.
It has evolved. Why did you tweet that?
I don't recall the exact context, sir, so I wouldn't be able to say.
Okay. Do you believe that America believes in black plunder and white democracy?
I don't believe that, sir.
You tweeted that in reference to a book you were reading at the time, apparently, The Case for Reparations.
I don't think I've ever read that book, sir.
You tweeted about it. You said you took a day off to fully read The Case for Reparations. You put that on Twitter in January of 2020. Do you think that white people should pay reparations?
I've never said that, sir.
Yes, you did. You said it in January of 2020. You tweeted, yes, the North, yes, all of us, yes, America, yes, our original collective sin and unpaid debt, yes, reparations, yes, on this day.
I don't believe that was a reference to fiscal reparations, sir.
What kind of reparations was it a reference to?
I think it was just a reference to the idea that we all owe much to the people who came before us.
That's a bizarre way to frame what you tweeted. Okay, how much reparations have you personally paid?
Sir, I don't believe that I've ever paid reparations.
Okay, it's just for everybody else.
I'm not asking anyone to pay reparations.
Seems to be what you're suggesting.
I love this guy. Fantastic. Now, why am I putting that before the interview with Ed here on the commentary segment? Because on a very serious note, I told you that it is time to create a contrast. The left will never change their behavior, their communist, socialist, aggregation of the means of production in government hands impulses until those policies kick them in the nuts. So let's go for it. You want to see the country under leftist tyranny versus freedom and liberty? Maybe when you see the difference, you'll vote like the Cuban community does in Florida, that it's actually seen tyranny. You see the contrast, the other side, what we're dealing with, how we're going to constantly have this bleed towards totalitarianism if we don't have the ability to change things and change them quickly. These are the kind of people we're going to be dealing with. Reparations, a wealth tax, open borders, theft in elections. Folks, it's going to be over. They are going to dump the filibuster. And these are the people you're going to be dealing with on the other side. They've already said it. Just listen to their own words. All right, quick break and we'll get to our guest. You know that feeling when spring rolls in, you suddenly want to fix everything in your house? I know the feeling, the spring cleaning. For me, it started with sleep. Fix it today. You don't get a good night's sleep, you feel terrible. You wake up physically exhausted, mentally exhausted, your emotional wreck. I've been waking up with this annoying lower back stiffness before I had my shoulder problem until I switched to Helix Sleep mattresses. I love Helix Sleep. They make a mattress customized to you. I upgraded to a Helix mattress, and it has helped with my back pain. My sleep tracker even showed my deep sleep time jump up. HRV was better, which honestly felt like I was winning the lottery for adults. A lot of us wear these sleep trackers now, kind of obsessed with it, and you'll see the difference. I know I did. And here's the thing. Helix just doesn't make a mattress. They've got over 20 models, so you can actually get one built for how you sleep. Your side sleeper, back sleeper. Yeah, you get hot when you sleep. You get cold when you sleep. Mine has a perfect mix of support and softness, so my back isn't screaming at me every morning. The team has them too. They love their Helix mattress, so check them out. Delivery was super easy. Shows up at your door. Free shipping, 120-night trial, lifetime warranty. All that's really good stuff. So do this for yourself. Go to helixsleep.com/Dan for 20% off site-wide. HELIX, Helix mattress, worth your time. Go to helixsleep.com/Dan for 20% off site-wide. That's helixsleep.com/Dan for 20% off site-wide. Make sure you enter our show name after checkout so they know we sent you. That's helixsleep.com/Dan. I'm really happy to welcome to the show today a congressional candidate. It's got a lot of excitement behind his campaign nationwide. Ed Galrine running for Kentucky, running for District 4 in Kentucky. Ed, welcome to the show. It's really great to have you.
Good morning, Agent Bongino. Good morning to the viewers. Thanks for having me on.
It takes, listen, it takes a lot of guts to run. So, win or lose, I congratulate you putting your name on a ballot in such a public manner. Good for you. That's the process. So, folks,
as you know,
first, yeah.
Motto of the 22 SAS, who dares wins.
You got to take a chance. I mean, sitting in the side of the ring throwing popcorn at the two boxers is, the kind of the cheap seat stuff. And I don't like that. Get in the action or not. So, Ed, you're running for the seat. It's garnered national attention. You're running against Tom Massie, a multi-term congressman in a Republican primary. Why are you running? Tell us who you are, your experience, and why the voters should pick you.
Well, thank you for the question. It's really pretty simple. The president asked me to meet with him on 17 October, and he basically made a challenge to me to serve my nation again. When I signed up in 1983, when President Reagan was rebuilding our nation after the failed presidency of Jimmy Carter, these were the words in my head: faith, family, freedom, duty, honor, country. And Dan, I took a look at what's going on around the world, and I evaluated what is the way I could have the most impact for our nation's national security. And it was to be a Navy SEAL officer. There were no books or movies. There was no bonus to join. I entered via officer candidate school into the leadership program, and I served at 7 SEAL teams and units, including twice the SEAL Team 6, for a career spanning 3 decades. Now to turn the page, when the president met with me on 17 October, Dan, he had my record, TSSCI, and you understand that language. He knew where I'd been. He knew what I'd done. He knew my commitment. He knew my commitment to faith, family, freedom, and duty, honor, country. He asked me to go home, think about it, pray about it, talk to my family. And he said he was going to endorse me in life and whatever I did. And I declared 4 days later on the 21st of October to be a champion for my party, my nation, and my district. Thank you for the question, Dan.
Yeah, listen, I want the voters to know who you are, not just what you stand for. And speaking of what you stand for, Republicans generally agree on the big 10 issues: taxes, healthcare, school choice. We get it. So I've got 20 minutes with you. I want to get to the issues that typically people will vote on in a Republican primary. Can kind of be a red line between candidate A or candidate B. How do you feel? I know you're a strong Second Amendment supporter. I've seen your campaign material, but how do you feel about constitutional carry? It's a big issue down here in Florida. Thankfully, it's spreading nationwide, just like it did down in the South. How do you feel about that?
Well, as you look at that symbology behind me, it speaks for itself. I am 1,000% behind it. I'm a lifetime member of the NRA. And I hear people talking about 2-gun shooter, 3-gun shooter. I was a 13-gun shooter, when I was a SEAL Team 6. I lost track of how many weapons were assigned to me. All that to say, it is non-negotiable. So with respect to that, I'll be a champion for that. Lifetime member of the NRA, rifle and pistol instructor. But all that to say, I will support and defend that.
Yeah, well, good, because that's an enormous issue with me. I mean, the Second Amendment's pretty clear, despite the left's attempts to, dissect punctuation and other things there. And it is a nationwide issue. I don't want you to assume because it exists or doesn't in your state that it's not a nationwide issue. You'll be a federal legislator if you win. So this is important for everyone listening. The second thing that's in the news today, obviously, is a Supreme Court case on birthright citizenship. Now, this is not a particularly complicated case. It basically comes down to two arguments, subject to the jurisdiction thereof. Meaning, if you are a person in this country and have a child, are you subject to the jurisdiction thereof? And therefore, your child, if they are born here in the United States, would get citizenship. However, Donald Trump is making a very sound argument, along with a lot of Supreme Court analysts and legal experts, that political jurisdiction and territorial jurisdiction are not the same thing. In other words, just because you're on our territory, potentially illegally, and have a baby, that does not mean you are subject to the jurisdiction thereof. You're a citizen of another country here illegally. Where do you stand on this? What's framed the anchor baby problem by many?
If I could use a phrase we've used here in Kentucky, this is a no-brainer. It is clear that the intent was for those subject to the jurisdiction. We have to be very wary in this nation of the intentions of our adversaries. It's a disruption operation to bring folks in illegally and then to grow that population to diffuse our nation and basically undermine it. This is as plain as the nose on your face. Absolutely not. That anchor baby, the birthright citizenship was never the intent of our founding fathers nor the legislation. Absolutely not. The president is on solid ground here in my prediction, although that's a hard thing to do, as Yogi Berra say, especially about the future, is this case will carry in his favor, and God bless him for advocating this on our behalf, we, the conservatives of this nation.
Well, I agree with you on a point you made here. This creates a really perilous national security problem, too. I think folks have to remember that global travel was not as easy when many of these civil rights amendments and some of these citizenship laws were passed. Air travel was, in some cases, non-existent. Many cases, non-existent. Air travel, even later on, was basically rudimentary compared to as it is now. You did not have the ability to go back and forth. The globe wasn't as mobile as it is now. You can come over here from a country that's an enemy of the United States as a covert agent, have a child, and basically, from the country infiltrate from the inside. I mean, this is a very real problem, and I hope the Supreme Court takes that into consideration.
Yes, and again, the president is on more than solid ground on this, and it's in the interest of our nation. If you're going to have a nation, as I understand it, we're the only major power in the world that allows such. It is nonsensical, and all that to say, the Supreme Court will find in his favor on solid ground.
Well, I hope so. I mean, this could be a real game-changing moment. The Supreme Court, for all its, faults among some of the members, has taken some bold stances on Chevron deference and others. So they have taken some pretty bold stances, especially on the Second Amendment and all the infiltration.
We've got to give credit to the president who set the conditions for that in his first term. And so folks need to remember that. He played some amazing chess to get us where we are now, to get back to constitutional rule, but he's still fighting that battle on our behalf.
No, he certainly is. Given your military experience, Ed, what is your stance on NATO right now? This has come up. It's in the news today. President Trump is, I think, understandably starting to question these global alliances that have stood for decades. I mean, many would argue it's the most successful military alliance in history. Fine. But there is simply no doubt, Ed, that some of the NATO allies, many of them, as a matter of fact, maybe outside of Poland and Lithuania, are not even attempting to meet their basic commitments to percentage of GDP spent on your military. In other words, they're not funding their military, and they're saying they are. And they're waiting for the United States to come in and be basically the bouncer in the bar. This is really unfair to us. And I think it's the right time for a president of the United States like President Trump with the cojones to do it, to say, hey, listen, if it's going to be an alliance, then, meet your basic requirements for the freaking alliance. It's not hard.
Yeah, you are spot on there. It is more than time to reevaluate that and reset, the understanding so they do abide by what their commitments are, because they have been free riders. And what I'm going to use is my lens as a graduate of the War College and also with my master's in operational intelligence. They have succumbed to what I would call nearly a method to infiltrate them. And what we see is the social programs over there, the leaning towards liberalism, being soft on defense. And so they become free riders on our ability to potentially defend them, and they're not doing their part. It should certainly be reevaluated. And if it needs to be changed and adjusted, as was illuminated here recently when we were denied the opportunity to use our bases for the operations that really helped them in the Mideast versus Iran, one of the four horsemen of the apocalypse, absolutely. It's time to revisit that and what the rules are of the road for what they have to do to be a part of that. Otherwise, they'll continue to be free riders and put us all at risk.
And I want you to get out your website if people want to support you. I have another question for you. I'm not going anywhere. I just want to make sure you get that out. Ed Galrine, running for Kentucky 4. What's the website?
EdGalrine.com. You'll see that I'm a fifth generation farmer. We've been farming in Kentucky for over 100 years. Greetings from the farm here, where you're standing between me and farm work. I'll be getting after it here a bit more today, but can't thank you enough for EdGalrine.com.
EdGalrine.com. So final question, and I, again, given your extensive military background here, what does success look like right now in Iran? I was reading a fascinating article in the Wall Street Journal I had mentioned yesterday, and given your experience in the war theater spaces, how combat for centuries, obviously millennia, was from the outside inside. You wanted to siege a castle, you had to siege the castle from the outside and get in, whether it was a Trojan horse or whatever. You didn't just start on the inside. The point of the piece was that military technology, as you know, has evolved so much from precision targeting and stealth technology from the air that we can now hit targets from the inside out. And the piece was basically saying that if I'm China right now, I'm watching what we did in this decapitation exercise in Iran, and I'm not happy. I'm thinking to myself, you know what? These guys aren't effing around, pardon the language here, that if they wanted to hit us from Beijing out, they may very well be able to do that. So my simple question is, what does success look like in Iran? Do we just, at this point, turn over some of the straight to international partners and say, hey, buck up, fellas, and let's go, and then consider it a success, which I think it would be, or do we stay there long term?
Well, again, look post-World War II, just for an example of where we've been long term for peace and prosperity, which is paid dividends. All that to say, I would offer that the end state the president's after is, first of all, no nuclear weapon whatsoever, nor any capability to develop that by the Iranians. The second part is remove their strategic weapons program. Now we're seeing that they actually had missiles that were far greater range than was previously known, and they were devising those clearly to be an aggressor as one of the four horsemen in the apocalypse right now, including China, North Korea, and Russia. To your point about China, a key outcome of what's going on that you cannot ignore is the president and his leadership team have doubled the deterrence poker chips on the table with Beijing, Moscow, and North Korea. Not only is the president unpredictable of what he's going to do when, but also we are fighting a 21st century war in the 21st century. And they are seeing that on full display, to your point, of the intricacies of what we're able to do on the battlefield. Now, to turn the page of what it looks like they're going forward, I would argue success is going to look like peace and prosperity being brought back to the Mideast. That those conditions require the elimination of an aggressive regime that's hostile to the world there in Iran, which was their full intent, which was funded by the Obama administration to the tune of $1.7 billion in unmarked currency. So the turn that country back over to the very folks that rose up a few weeks ago. We've got to set the conditions to get that narrow element out of there of extremists. Because as I said on media a number of times, Ayatollah was a suicide bomber looking for a nuke, full stop. And we see that on full display right now with the weaponry they have. The other good news here, Dan, is now no longer the Russia and China have that endless supplies of those high-tech, high-quality drones where Iran has had their manufacturing crushed by the U.S. strikes. So turning the page, we'll see a new era with Iran coming back into the fold of the modern world with peace and prosperity, trade, eliminate that threat, and that allows us to shift and continue to focus on China, Russia, and North Korea and defeat them by deterrence, as Reagan did, not have to conduct combat operations. But if we have to fight, you can see that we will have gotten some training under our belt and we know our capabilities, and they're going to be dismayed as they watch this unfold further.
And if you don't mind, I'm going to steal that. The Ayatollah was a suicide bomber looking for a nuke. Because we're down to Ayatollah number 7 now, as he wipes out the baseball cards each time. But I'll footnote it. I promise. That's very well summed up. Ed, listen, thanks a lot for putting your name on a ballot. I know it's tough. I've been there myself. Campaigns are ugly sometimes. It's just the nature of politics. But putting your name on a ballot takes a lot of guts. Your website again is
EdGalrine.com.
Check him out, folks, if you want to support Mr. Galrine running for Congress in Kentucky 4. Ed, thanks a lot for your time today and best of luck. I really appreciate it.
Okay. Thank you, Dan. Thank you to the viewers.
Folks, listen, it's up to you in Kentucky. You pick who you want. I'm getting this candidate out there. I ran myself a number of times, and it's a fascinating process. I actually strongly encourage you to do it at some point. You don't have to run for Congress or the Senate. Maybe run for state rep, maybe run for city council. I really encourage you to do it. I've been encouraging some friends locally. I have a friend who ran in Maryland, wound up running. He's a multi-term delegate up there now in Anne Arundel County. It's definitely worth your time to see the process. So check that out. And I'm glad to bring you some of these candidates. We'll try to do a couple more before the midterms so we can get them some exposure. Thanks so much for tuning in today. Please do us a favor. Go to the Rumble app in the App Store, whatever phone you have, Android or Apple. Download the free Rumble app. Give us a follow. The Dan Bongino Show, just look it up, follow us. It is absolutely free. Join us every day for the chat at 10 a.m. Eastern time. You can check out Haley and Vince as well. Haley at noon on Rumble, Haley Carania, and Vince Colonese at 8 a.m. We really appreciate it. And if you want to watch on the web, go to rumble.com/Bongino. You'll see a follow button when you get there. Click that follow button. We really appreciate it. Thanks so much for your support, folks, for making us number 3 in the Triton podcast rankings. I really appreciate it. I will see you back here tomorrow.
Hey there, I'm Vince.
I'm Haley Carania,
Host of Vince.
host of Scrolling with Haley.
You can always catch my show right here
on the Bongino Report.
live, 8 a.m. Eastern, weekday mornings.
Weekdays at noon. If you miss it, no worries. The show will always be
Right here
and
and
anywhere you find podcasts. Thanks for watching.